So we'll begin today on a little more of our mental and physical prep for Auburn. As you know, we're playing in the Dome, so we hope to be able to go inside some this week. Maybe not every day, but just a couple days to be able to practice inside to prepare for it. I've got a lot of respect for Gus and his team. I've got a lot of respect for Coach Steele and the job he's done defensively. They're playing at a really high level, probably one of the hottest teams in college football, if not the hottest team in college football. They got good players on both sides of the ball. They got really good specialists, one that may be the best in the country. And they're playing at a high level. They got a good football team. So we'll take on those challenges this week, prepare our team to play, and get our guys ready to go out. And we want to be at our best when our best is needed, and it's certainly needed this week.
Raise your hand if you have questions.
Kirby, I know you could probably say this any game, but how important is the play of your defensive line this game, or defensive front, and what happened in the last game that basically Auburn's offensive front seemed to dominate?
Yeah, the line of scrimmage, anytime you play an SEC game, is trench warfare, as we call it. It's big, physical guys going after it. I think the line of scrimmage is really critical in this game, both sides. You could say our offensive line being physical is just as important as our defensive line being physical. We got to do a good job getting some knockback. They've got a really big physical offensive line, and they're really patient in the way they block. And the guy they got behind that offensive line is pretty good running the ball as well. So I don't know that it's our defensive line having to play better. Obviously, everybody as a team has got to play better. We got to tackle better. We got to keep our edges better. And we got to be able to run the ball better on offense. So at the end of the day, it's a lot of parts that got to be better than just our defensive line.
Coach, it was brought up over the weekend that the last time you guys faced each other, you felt that a few calls were missed, that you sent them in to the league, primarily defensive holding. Is that something you do every week, or did you just feel like they were so egregious that they needed to be brought up?
Yeah, no comment.
Kirby, how much can, a lot's been made that playing these guys just 4 weeks ago and what happened in that game. How much can revenge really, or avenging a loss, be a factor when you're trying to get your guys motivated? And can you speak to just what it was like back in 2011 season for Alabama? I remember Les Miles saying he thinks sometimes it's easier to motivate guys that lost a game than the ones that have won a previous game. Do you remember that with Alabama? How much did y'all use what had happened, in Tuscaloosa when y'all got to New Orleans that year?
You watch the tape of the game, but I think that's great, and that fires you up pregame, and that gets you all excited. But when the toe meets leather, it's about striking people. It's about hat speed. It's about blocking, tackling. It's about having composure. It's about having discipline, and it really doesn't revert back to who won the previous game. It matters a lot more about what you do in that game, because the other game is past history. Now, whether or not you say it helps mentally with your preparation, somebody's more focused than the other, I don't know. I certainly think Auburn was really focused down the stretch because they knew that backs were against the wall. They had 2 losses. So now everybody's back's against the wall. So I think you should prepare the same regardless of your record, regardless of a revenge factor, and you be real consistent in your approach so that the players are able to understand that it's important to prepare right every game. And we don't say, this game's more important than the other, because it's the next game. And the next game's always the most important game.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the game.
How much y'all used it?
Yeah, we didn't use the game. There wasn't a whole lot from the game. It was like 9-6. It was an extremely physical game. So the next game was going to be extremely physical. It was in the breakdown. We used it to make decisions, but, it was a completely different circumstance because LSU's offense was unique then to LSU. Auburn's offense is not unique to just Auburn. There's teams that run similar offenses to Auburn. They don't run them as efficiently. They don't run them as good, but that was a 2-back run team at LSU then. That was the only team we played all year that did that.
Kirby, given that Jake was under duress the last game and the run game wasn't what you wanted, how did he perform, and what do you need to get out of him this game?
Just need to play the quarterback position, make good decisions, put us in the right plays. It's really important that he plays with poise. He's under duress every game that I've seen. I mean, the quarterback position in this league, you're going to be under duress. And it's one of those that he has to execute the plan, not try to be superhuman, allow us playmakers around him to help make plays and play within the system. You know, big part of this game is not making turnovers, and we got to try to force some on them and not turn it over ourselves.
Kirby, Deandre Walker's a guy who's been getting a little bit of more playing time lately. What kind of effect could he have on the game Saturday?
He's done a good job, very athletic, hard to block guy, plays with great toughness, great effort. He played really well. Looking back at the Tech game, he was able to help us. It was a situation where it fit what he does well too. So he's improving, and he's very conscientious about his special teams work and his defensive end work.
Coach, in the last game against Auburn, the Nick and Sonia combined for 48 yards, which kind of serves as an outlier for us their performances this year. I mean, have you noticed any motivations from them entering this game? And what is the key to preparation in terms of gaining some traction in the run game with those guys this week?
Yeah, run game is all about movement, and you've got to get movement. When they run the ball well at Auburn, they get movement. When we run the ball well at Georgia, we usually get movement. And when you don't get movement up front, it's tough. It's tough sledding, especially in our league. So I think Sony and Nick, they understood going into that game it was going to be tough. Certainly didn't expect it to be that tough, but it's one of the things that we've moved on past that. We're focused on this opportunity, and those two guys will be at their best. I know that because they're competitors, and they'll give us everything they got.
Kirby, when you took the job and went off to do your national championship duties still at Alabama, you were asked when Georgia would be in position to play for championships, and you pretty much ducked the question. Now that Georgia is about to play for a championship, has it happened as fast as you thought? Is it slower than you thought? Are you on schedule?
I've repeatedly said the same thing. There is no schedule for winning championships. Our job at the University of Georgia is to educate, get degrees, make sure we make the student athlete a better person, and to win championships. So the objective is to get the most out of every team that we can. And that's what we tell our coaching staff every week. Our job is to prepare them to be the best they can be in the game, to get the most out of them. Then at the end of the season, we look back and we say, did we get the most out of this unit, this team that we possibly could, withstanding injuries, withstanding circumstances that you can't control? And that's what we'll do at the end of this year, and then we'll do the same thing the following year. But I think everybody wants to say that this is the schedule. There is no schedule. The only thing there is what you have and what you do with what you have. So I'm going to leave it to you guys to decide what the schedule is or what the term is, because that's what you guys do. That's not really for us internally. We want to do the best we can with what we got, and that's what we're trying to do this year.
Kirby, when you're charged with defending offense like Auburn that has so many different fakes and whatnot, talk about the difficulty for the linebackers and the corners to not end up taking on blocks and getting them around them.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what you're asking about there. The fakes, I mean, they are very good at perimeter runs, and they also are very good exposing your edges. But a lot of that is based on the guys with the ball in their hand. Stove, he's unbelievable, great athlete that runs rocket sweeps really well. Well, you say every time Stove comes in motion, they're running rocket sweep. No, they complement that really well in the power run game inside. So with those two combinations, you're having to defend two things all the time. They've got a really good power run game. People think they don't. I've played them for a long time. They do. They have physical players. They can run gap plays. They can run zone plays, and they can run on the perimeter. And then when you add the dimension of a quarterback who can throw the ball and be elusive enough to create with his feet, you hit the perfect storm. And right now they're playing at a high level because they've got all those factors. So it's important for us to keep our edges, but we can't give up movement at the same time. When you start giving up movement on these guys, they'll crease you and gash you and do a good job. And Carry-On's incredible at being here 1 second, and the next second he's out there on the perimeter. He can bounce out on you.
Since their loss to LSU, Jarrett Stidham's been 68% in each game, 68% or better in each game. how do you disrupt him in the passing game to keep him from being as accurate as he's been these last 5 games?
Well, I think you got to do things. You got to mix coverages. You got to be able to get pressure. You know, a lot of their passes sometimes are 7-man protection. So everybody's screaming and yelling about not getting pressure. When they're protecting with 7, unless you bring 8, you don't have trouble getting there. So they do a good job with mixing up the protections. They do a good job of putting him in situations to be successful. And to be honest, he's a really good quarterback who I think has gotten the greatest amount of improvement during the year any player that I've seen from early in the year, which we got games when he played early in the year, to now. I think he's gotten confidence in the system. I think he's gotten used to the SEC, and I think he's playing at a high level.
Coach, if you could update us on injuries with Trent and Christian Payne, if you've seen any change in them, and also if I could ask a second question as well about just the noise factor. How many of your problems over at Jordan Hare might have had something to do with the environment, and how you can the environment here might clean that up?
Yeah, on Trenton and Christian, we expect both of them to be fine. We haven't practiced yet, and so we don't really know. But, I mean, Trenton, he actually played in the game. I mean, he came back in and played. He should be fine. Christian, I'll know more on today. As far as the environment, I actually thought that we handled that part pretty well from an offensive standpoint of functioning, snap count, timing, that kind of thing. The atmosphere in this weekend is going to be probably just as loud in a lot of ways, because you can make a case that we'll have more fans there, but it's, from what we've been told, an extremely loud place. So crowd noise will always be a factor when you play indoors. We'll prepare for that. I don't think that the crowd noise there had an impact on the timing or any plays. Jake did a good job handling that. I think their defense had a lot to do with the struggles that we had, because they got a really good defensive front.
Kirby, I know you've talked so much about the seniors this year, trying to figure out another way to ask it, and you've said a few times you just kind of know this team knows how to handle moments. How much of that has to do with these seniors, and did you kind of find them this way when you got here 2 years ago, or were there some moments where you think they developed that culture?
I think you're always developing. I mean, I think culture's created and culture's taught. The one thing we've tried to do as an organization since they got here is put them in situations, whether it's meeting with certain people that we bring in from outside organizations, meeting with speakers. We try to put them in leadership positions. Throughout the summer, we try to put them in leadership positions. So the culture is created by what situations you put them in, and they grow in those situations. They learn how to handle situations, and I think over the course of 2 years, they've gotten better. Now, were they good kids and good players when we got here? Absolutely. This senior class is a good class. It's got some good players in it. So I think that's important to have that foundation of talent. But you develop the leaders. They develop their leadership qualities throughout their course of being here. So each one of them has experienced things throughout their time here that's made them better leader. I'm a firm believer that Sony and Nick are the leaders they are because of the hard times they've been through. I mean, each one of them has been out with significant injuries during their career. That's helped them be a stronger leader. Same way with Lorenzo and Davin. They've become leaders because George Jenkins was a good leader. Leonard Floyd was a good leader, because we've had people come in and meet with them and talk to them about the ways we want to lead. I meet with them. I mean, we try to teach that and coach that so that they can be the right person in the clutch. And it's not always perfect, but we certainly aspire for them to be better men because they have played here.
Kirby, a lot was made of the dominance the SEC West teams had in this game recently, coming from that division. Were there some characteristics that you wanted your team to have in terms of whether physical play or something that might be different than what you noticed in the East?
Yeah, I mean, the most physical team usually wins whatever the game is. It doesn't matter if it's SEC East, West, crossover, championship. So physicality is a part of the game. Who controls the line of scrimmage? It just so happens that the teams from the West have controlled the line of scrimmage more often than the team from the East. So that's an objective in every game, and that probably won't ever change in the game of football. So, I mean, that's an objective for this game, but it's not about East-West. It's about the game of football.
2 more questions?
Coach, if Kerryon Johnson can't play, does that change your game plan at all?
Well, I think you got to be smart. You know, you got to understand where a team's strengths and weaknesses are, and they've got a lot of strengths. They've got, other backs that are good, probably not near as good as Carry-On, but they've got other backs that are quality backs, and they're SEC backs. They've also got ways to create running game that Gus has always done outside of Carry-On, and he does a good job of sharing those carries. They got a quarterback who, don't mistake him for a runner, because he can run the ball when you least expect it. They had several designed runs for him against Alabama. When you start running the quarterback, it creates a really tough dynamic. So they've got other ways to get carries. I fully expect him to play, and we'll have to deal with it either way.
Kirby, what are the recruiting advantages and disadvantages of playing in this game?
I always believe there's a lot more advantages than disadvantages because you can show what's on paper. You can the publicity you get and the just the amount of exposure you get from playing in this game. CBS and everybody in the country will be tuned in. There's no price tag you can put on that. The only disadvantage is somebody sitting in your kid's home this week and they're doing an in-home visit and they're getting to sell their program while you're preparing for a game. But most of the people that we're recruiting, they understand that we can't be there right now, and they recognize that we'll be there as soon as we can, and that begins after this game. Thanks.